parts of plants and their functions. Like humans, plants also have different parts. Each part of the plant has its own function. Let us know about these parts. A plant has two main parts: the root, which grows under the soil, and the shoot, which grows above the soil. Root. Root is the part of a plant which grows under the soil. Different plants have different type of roots. There are two types of roots: taproot and fibrous root. Some plants have taproots, while some have fibrous root. Taproot. A taproot has one main thick root below the stem that goes deep inside the soil, from which smaller roots grow as its branches. Plants like carrot, radish, neem, mango, bean and peepal have taproots. Fibrous root. This type of root has no main root. Many tiny, thin roots grow like a bunch below the stem. The roots of the plant spread out in the soil. Plants like wheat, rice, maize and onion have fibrous root. Functions of roots. Roots have many functions. Some of them are given here. 1. Roots fix a plant to the soil. They hold the plant firmly in the soil. They help the plants to stand firmly even when a strong wind blows. 2. They absorb water and mineral salts from the soil and send them to the different parts of the plant. 3. The roots of some plants like turnip, carrot and radish store food in them and are thus edible.
Let's start our understanding of the roots first. There are three major areas of study that we need to carry out. First is the type of roots. Second is the various regions or the parts of the roots. And lastly, we'll study the various modifications of the roots. Let's begin with the types of the roots first. Here we see a carrot and an onion in the soil. If we uproot both plants, where can you locate the roots in both of these? Well, this complete structure of a carrot is like a root. Yes, in case of a carrot, this complete structure is the main root which is edible. On the other hand, in case of this onion, we find these small bunch-like structures. These are its roots. So can we say that there are two major types of roots? Well, there are various types of roots found throughout the plant kingdom. But we will restrict ourselves to three major types. The first one is the category of carrots. These type of roots are called taproots. The second type is the one in which there are bunch-like structures, the ones found in this onion. These are called the fibrous roots. And the last type, which we're yet to discuss, is called as adventitious roots. This type involves the roots which arise from other parts of the plant body and not the main roots below the stem. Don't get confused. Let's understand each type better. Taproot system is the one in which there is a single root, which is the primary root that anchors the plant. The one seen in this case. There are several secondary and tertiary roots, that is these smaller roots-like structure, which arise from the primary root. The primary root has the tendency to grow deeper in the soil. Usually, dicot plants exhibit the taproot system. The second type is that of a fibrous root system. This type does not contain a single primary root. Rather, many smaller roots come together to form a bunch-like structure. These roots usually do not grow too deep unless the tree is very huge. And what kind of plants exhibit this type of system? That's right. Monocots usually have the fibrous root system. Now comes the last type from our list. That is the adventitious root system. This type deals with the roots that unusually originate from the other parts of the plants, like the branches, stem, leaves, or even some old woody roots at times. Have you ever seen a huge banyan tree? Any idea what these string-like structures are? Well, these are actually the roots. Yes, a banyan tree like this one has these string-like structures. These are the prop roots which arise from the branches. These roots are called aerial roots, which are a type of adventitious roots. As we can see here, the roots arise from the aerial plants, the branches. They grow from above the ground, and they firmly adhere to the ground, giving the huge tree a proper structural support as well. Note that the banyan tree does have a proper root system under the ground. The adventitious roots are just additional ones that help in making a few systems work efficiently in the plant body. This is one example of adventitious roots. Now, before moving ahead with the next section, let's revise the types of the roots once. The first type is that of the taproots. This type has a single, long primary root system and smaller secondary and tertiary roots arising from it, just like in the case of carrots. The second type is the fibrous roots. In this type, several smaller roots come together to form a single bunch-like structure, just like in the case of onion roots. Lastly, we have the adventitious root system. Here, the root arises from the different parts of the plant like the stem, branches, leaves, and so on. The prop roots of the banyan tree can be considered as a good example of the adventitious roots. So this was about the types of roots.
Shoot. The part of a plant which grows above the soil is called shoot. The shoot of a plant bears different parts such as stem, branches, leaves, buds, flowers, and fruits. Stem. The stem is the main part of the shoot that supports the plant. It bears branches, leaves, buds, flowers, and fruits. It helps the plant to stand erect. Some plants like banyan, mango, neem, and peepal have very hard, woody, and strong stems called trunks. The trunk helps the plant to stand upright. Some plants like banana have soft, thick, and green stem. Some plants like money plant have very soft and weak stems. They bear leaves, but they cannot hold the plant upright. They need a support to climb up. These plants are called climbers. Functions of the stem. The main functions of the stem are given here. 1. The stem helps the plant stand upright. 2. It carries water and mineral salts from the roots and sends it to the leaves. 3. It carries food prepared by the leaves to different parts of the plant. 4. The stems of some plants like sugarcane, onion, corn, potato, and ginger store food in them. We eat the stems of these plants.
What do we do when we have high fever or we are down with pain? We pop an aspirin. It's that simple. But do we know how exactly this medicine came into existence? What was it made from? Well, sources say it was around the mid-18th century that the bark extract of a willow tree came to be used as an effective remedy against pain, inflammation, and fever. If you've guessed that this was the early form of aspirin, then you're probably right. But can a simple, dead-looking bark be used for creating such a powerful drug? Yes, this stem is one part of the tree, which appears to be just a support system. However, it serves functions beyond our imagination. It has several tasks to perform. Let's study this interesting part of the tree in this video. To begin with, can you tell me what exactly is the stem? Well, technically, it's the part of the plant above the ground which forms a proper structural axis. However, in layman terms, it can be described as the wooden part of the plant other than the roots which bears the leaves, flowers, and fruits. Any idea what is the stem used for by the plant? Well, The two major functions of any stem are, first, to support the plant, and second, to conduct food and water throughout the plant body. Now let's understand this in detail. The first important function is supporting the complete plant structure. This is very obvious. The stem bears the branches and the leaves. Flowers and fruits are all attached to them. The second important function is that of transportation. The stem is not only responsible for supporting the plant, but also for carrying out transportation of useful substances throughout the plant body. And we already know that it harbors all the important parts like leaves, flowers and fruits. The stem has nodes, which are locations from where new leaves arise. Something like this. So the nodes serve as commencing points for newer leaves. Let me introduce you to one more interesting term. That's called the internode. It's the part of the stem between two nodes. So this region here is the internode. Is that all? Have we seen all the functions of a stem? Well, not really. Can you tell me whether a stem can perform photosynthesis or not? Think about it. Well, if your answer is no, then you're only partially correct. Yes, we always look at the non-green woody surface of any stem and firmly say that it does not conduct photosynthesis. But is that true in the case of all plants? Let's consider the small plantlets. The stems of these young plants are not completely woody. Rather, the tender stems are green in color. So in these young plants, the stem also conducts photosynthesis. As the plant grows, the stem loses its green color and the woody surface does develop, then discontinues the process. These were the major functions of any plant stem. Let's understand more about leaves in this video. To begin with, let's first understand the structure of a typical leaf. This is how we can represent it. Now, can you tell me which part of this structure is actually referred to as a leaf? What can be considered as a complete leaf in this entire structure? Most of us would answer that only this green portion is a leaf. But that's not the right answer. A complete leaf includes this green part as well as this small connecting portion and the base present here. Yes, the complete leaf comprises of these three parts. The basal part, which connects the leaf to the stem or the branch at the node, can sometimes have small lateral leaf-like structures. These can be referred to as stipules. The next portion that acts like a connecting part between this major green portion and the basal region is called the petiole. And now comes the most important part. The horizontal flat green structure. This is called the leaf blade or simply the lamina. This portion is usually covered with a waxy layer meant for protection. The layer is called the cuticle. It is the lamina which is responsible for carrying out the crucial function of photosynthesis. But how does the process work exactly? How are the ingredients brought to this point? Well, that is done with the help of the smaller structures present in this part. If we zoom into the leaf blade, we find these fine lines. This single prominent line at the center is called the midrib. It acts as the primary vein which carries water absorbed by the roots and passed by the stem. The water is then distributed to the complete surface via these secondary veins and these small reticulate or netted veins. When leaves have such netted veins, it's referred to as the reticulate venation. This is usually a characteristic of dicots. However, in most of the monocots, like the coconut leaves for example, we find straight veins running parallel to each other. Such type of a system is referred to as parallel venation. Apart from the veins, the leaf blade contains a few more important structures as well. This pointed end of a leaf is called its apex, and this complete edge of the leaf is called its margin. So do all the leaves have this kind of uneven or pointed margins? Nope. Leaves of various types have different types of margins. Let's have a look at a few important ones. Here are a few leaves on our screen. Can you notice the difference among these? The first one has a smooth or a plain margin. This type is referred to as an entire margin. Can you guess the next on the list? Let me help you. Don't these margins appear teeth-like? Yes, that's the reason why this is referred to as dentate margin. Now can you guess this similar type? Well, this type is called the double dentate margin. Here we have one more similar type. Is this type different from the dentate margin? Yes, it is. If you observe carefully, then this type has the teeth-like edges pointing towards the apex, unlike the dentate type where the teeth point outwards. Such a type is called serrate margin. Now comes this type of margin. The uneven pattern of edges is referred to as the crenate margin. Let's now talk about these two similar types. Here, as we can see, the leaf has incisions which reach less than halfway to the midrib. As a result, we find lobe-like structures forming the edge. This type is called the lobed margin. And now comes the last type. This type seems as if the leaf is parted into sections. Hence, this is called the parted margin. So these were a few types of margins found in different leaves. Note that these were just the types of margins and not the types of leaves.
The leaves are arranged on the stem in a specific way so that they can absorb the maximum amount of sunlight for photosynthesis. The arrangement of leaves on the stem of a plant is called phyllotaxy. When each leaf arises from a separate node on the stem, the leaves are said to be arranged in an alternate manner. When two leaves arise from a single node, but in the opposite direction, they are said to be arranged in an opposite manner. Sometimes more than two leaves arise from the same node and wrap around the stem. The arrangement is called a whorl. Isn't it amazing to see how well planned the leaf structure is?
Vein. It is a branch of vascular tissue entering from stem into leaf. Venation. The method of arrangement of veins and veinlets in the leaf lamina of the leaf is called venation. Venation provides definite shape and strength to the leaf lamina. It also concerns in the expansion of the leaf lamina to get sufficient amount of sunlight. It helps in transportation of water, minerals and food materials. Types of venation. In angiosperms, venation is of two types. They are 1. Reticulate venation and 2. Parallel venation.
Plants possess flowers. Flowers are the reproductive structure of the plant. In a flower, the male sex organ is called the stamen and the female sex organ is called the pistil. But how does this process of sexual reproduction occur? Let's try and understand it. But before that, let's have a look at the typical structure of a flower. It appears somewhat like this. A flower has mainly two components. Now, what do we mean by this? Every flower is mainly composed of two parts. They are the essential and the non-essential parts. Do we know what these are? The parts of a flower such as the stamen and the pistil, which are the reproductive parts, are the essential parts. Their function says it all. These are essential because they are directly involved in the process of reproduction. Do we mean that if these structures are not present, then a plant will not be able to reproduce? Yes, that's absolutely correct. So how will the plant be able to reproduce if the gamete-producing structures are not present? And what are the other parts then? Floral parts such as the petals and sepals are the next in our list, and they are the non-essential parts of a flower. These floral parts do not take part in the process of reproduction directly and are therefore called the non-essential parts. Now let's discuss each part in detail. To begin with, we have the stamen, which is the male part. What does the stamen look like? If we zoom in the structure, it looks like this. Stamen has two distinct parts, the anther and the filament. Do you think that these structures have specific functions to perform? Yes, as a matter of fact, they do. The part called the anther bears minute round bodies called pollen grains which play an active role in reproduction. There is a specific process by which pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the female part of the same or different flower. Now, what is that part called? For that, we need to focus onto our next floral part, the pistil, which is the female part. The pistil has three distinct subparts. And what are these subparts? They are the stigma, style, and the ovary. Do these structures have specific functions? Yes, they do. The part called stigma is the landing place for the pollen. And what exactly do we mean by this? Pollen from the male part, the anther, land on the stigma and germinate further. This process is what we call pollination in plants. Next comes the style, which is a slender stalk that holds up the stigma in position and connects it with the ovary. What about the ovary then? It is the swollen basal part of the pistil which contains the ovules. But what are ovules and what is their function? Ovules are the female gametes that get fertilized and form the embryo.